Ever feel like there's something more? Like you're living a life that's somehow smaller than the one you were meant for? That nagging feeling, that persistent whisper that tells you you're capable of more, that you're destined for more. We've all been there. That place of quiet yearning, of unspoken dreams, of the fear that holds us back from taking the leap. But what if that fear, that uncertainty, is actually a call? A call to something bigger, something bolder, something more profoundly meaningful? That's the question at the heart of Abraham's story. A story that, at first glance, seems distant and ancient. But at its core, it's a story about us, about the universal human struggle to find our purpose, to overcome our fears, to embrace the unknown. We're going to journey with Abraham, not as a figure on a pedestal, but as a fellow traveler, a flawed, courageous, deeply human being who wrestled with the same questions we wrestle with today. And we're going to discover how his journey can illuminate our path, empowering us to break free from the things that hold us back and step into the fullness of who we were meant to be. Are you ready to begin? Imagine a world vastly different from our own, a world of polytheistic beliefs where numerous gods and goddesses controlled various aspects of life. This was the world of Abram, a man living in Ur of the Chaldeans, a prosperous city in ancient Mesopotamia. Ur was a hub of civilization, offering comfort, security, and a well-defined social structure. Abram, likely a man of some standing, was embedded in this world, surrounded by its traditions, its beliefs, and its limitations. Then something extraordinary happened. A divine call, a revelation that would shatter Abram's world and set him on a course that would change history. The call was simple, yet radical. Leave your homeland, your family, your father's house, and go to a land that I will show you. This wasn't just a geographical relocation. It was a complete upheaval of Abram's life. He was being asked to abandon everything he knew, the security of his community, the familiarity of his surroundings, the predictability of his future, for an unknown destination, guided only by a promise. Let's pause for a moment and consider the audacity of this call. In our modern world, we often talk about finding our purpose or following our dreams. But Abram's call was far more radical. It wasn't about self-improvement or personal fulfillment. It was about absolute obedience to a divine command, a command that seemed to defy logic and reason. The divine call wasn't just about leaving, it was also about becoming. God promised Abram that he would make him a great nation, bless him, and make his name great. This was a promise of immense proportions, a promise that would extend far beyond Abram's own lifetime. And it was a promise that carried a profound responsibility. Through Abram, all the families of the earth would be blessed. This is where the story transcends the personal and becomes truly universal. Abram wasn't just being called to a new land, he was being called to a new way of being, a way of relating to the divine that would have implications for all of humanity. He was being asked to become the progenitor of a new faith, a faith based on the belief in one God, a God who was not limited by geography or tribal affiliation. The original text describes Abram's response as immediate and unquestioning obedience. But I think it's important to acknowledge the humanity of Abram. It's hard to imagine that he had no doubts, no fears, no moments of questioning. Perhaps his obedience wasn't blind, but rather a courageous act of trust in the face of profound uncertainty. Consider a modern analogy. Imagine a successful entrepreneur who feels a deep calling to leave the corporate world and start a nonprofit organization dedicated to helping the homeless. This decision might involve a significant pay cut, a loss of prestige, and a great deal of uncertainty. Their friends and family might question their sanity. They might face moments of doubt and fear, but their inner conviction, their belief in their purpose, compels them to take the leap. Abram's journey to Canaan was not a leisurely stroll. It was a perilous trek across vast and often hostile terrains. The original text highlights the dangers of the journey: bandits, wild animals, unpredictable weather. But beyond the physical challenges, there were also the psychological and emotional burdens. Abram was responsible for the safety and well-being of his wife, Sarai, his nephew Lot, and a considerable number of servants and livestock. He was a leader, making crucial decisions every day, decisions that could mean the difference between life and death. The journey itself was a test of faith. Every step of the way, Abram had to trust in the divine promise, even when he couldn't see the destination, even when the path ahead seemed fraught with peril. And then they arrived in Canaan, the promised land, only to find it inhabited by other peoples, with their own cultures, their own traditions, their own gods. And to make matters worse, a famine struck the land, forcing Abram to make a difficult decision, to seek refuge in Egypt. This journey to Egypt is a pivotal moment in the story, and it's one that reveals Abram's flaws. Fearing for his life, he presented his wife, Sarai, as his sister, a deception that put her in a vulnerable position. This act, while understandable from a survival perspective, raises serious ethical questions. It's a reminder that even those who are called to great things are still capable of making poor choices, of succumbing to fear and self-preservation. The original text rightly calls this episode controversial. It's a moment where Abram's actions are deeply questionable, and it's crucial to examine why the story includes this detail. It's not there to glorify deception. It's there to show the complexities of human nature, even within a narrative of divine calling. One interpretation is that this episode serves as a contrast to later moments of Abraham's faith. It highlights his growth, his transformation. He starts as a man who, under pressure, resorts to deception, but he learns from this experience. After a time, Abram and his entourage returned to Canaan, wealthier but perhaps also wiser. A conflict arose between Abram's herdsmen and Lot's herdsmen, a dispute over resources that ultimately led to their separation. Lot chose the seemingly more fertile land, the plains of the Jordan, while Abram took the less desirable land. This seemingly minor incident is significant. It reveals Abram's willingness to trust in the long-term divine promise, even when it meant sacrificing immediate gain. It's a demonstration of his faith, his belief that God would provide, even in the face of scarcity. And it's after this act of trust that God reaffirms his promise to Abram, declaring that he will give him and his descendants all the land that he can see. This is a pivotal moment, a renewal of the covenant, a reassurance that Abram is on the right path. The story then takes an unexpected turn. A war erupts among local kings, and Lot is captured. Abram, despite their previous separation, rallies his men and rescues his nephew, demonstrating his courage, his loyalty, and his leadership skills. Following this victory, Abram encounters a mysterious figure, Melchizedek, king of Salem and priest of God Most High. Melchizedek blesses Abram and receives a tithe from him. This encounter is significant for several reasons. It elevates Abram's status, recognizing him not just as a military leader, but also as a man of spiritual authority. And it hints at a universal understanding of the divine, as Melchizedek, who is not part of Abram's lineage, acknowledges his connection to God. These events, the journey, the famine, the deception, the separation, the war, the encounter with Melchizedek, all serve to shape Abram, to test his faith, to prepare him for the defining moment of his life, the establishment of the covenant. The covenant between God and Abram is more than just an agreement. It's a sacred bond, a promise that will define Abram's identity and the destiny of his descendants. The original text rightly emphasizes the unilateral nature of the covenant. God makes the promise, and it is based entirely on his faithfulness, not on Abram's merit. This is a radical concept. It's not about earning God's favor. It's about receiving it as a gift. It's about grace, not works. As part of the covenant, Abram's name is changed to Abraham, father of a multitude, and Sarai's name is changed to Sarah, signifying their new roles and their new destinies. Their names themselves become a prophecy, a constant reminder of the divine promise. And then the seemingly impossible happens. Sarah, who is well past childbearing age, conceives and gives birth to a son, Isaac. This miraculous birth is the fulfillment of the divine promise, a testament to God's faithfulness and a source of immense joy for Abraham and Sarah. But the story doesn't end there. In one of the most challenging and controversial episodes of the entire Bible, God tests Abraham's faith by commanding him to sacrifice Isaac, his only son, the son of the promise. This command is shocking, horrifying, and seemingly incomprehensible. How could a God who promised Abraham a multitude of descendants demand the sacrifice of his only heir? Abraham's response is one of obedience, but it's an obedience that is fraught with tension and anguish. He prepares to carry out the command, but at the last moment, God intervenes, providing a ram as a substitute. This episode has been interpreted in countless ways. Some see it as the ultimate test of faith, a demonstration of Abraham's absolute trust in God. Others see it as a rejection of human sacrifice, a declaration that God does not desire such offerings. Still others see it as a foreshadowing of the sacrifice of Jesus in the Christian tradition. Regardless of the interpretation, the near sacrifice of Isaac is a pivotal moment, a moment that reveals the depth of Abraham's faith and the complexity of his relationship with the divine. In the years that followed, Abraham continued to live a life of faith, witnessing the growth of his family and the fulfillment of the divine promise. He arranged the marriage of his son Isaac to Rebekah, ensuring the continuation of his lineage. Abraham lived to a ripe old age, and his death is described with a sense of peace and completeness. He was gathered to his people, a phrase that suggests a belief in an afterlife, a reunion with his ancestors. But Abraham's legacy extends far beyond his own lifetime. He is revered as the patriarch of three major religions: Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. He is a figure of shared heritage, a symbol of faith, obedience, and the enduring power of a divine promise. However, Abraham's legacy is not without its complexities. It has also been a source of division and conflict, as different religious traditions have interpreted his story in different ways, claiming him as their own. Yet at its core, Abraham's story is a story of hope, a story of transformation, a story of the enduring power of faith. It's a story that challenges us to examine our own lives, to identify the errors that are holding us back, and to have the courage to step into the unknown, trusting in a power greater than ourselves. What are the things in your life that you cling to, the things that provide you with comfort and security, but also prevent you from growing, from reaching your full potential? Perhaps it's a dead-end job, a toxic relationship, a fear of failure, or a limiting belief about yourself. Abraham's story challenges us to leave those errors behind, to take a leap of faith, to embrace the uncertainty of the journey. It reminds us that true growth often requires discomfort, that true fulfillment often lies beyond our comfort zones. It's not about achieving perfection, it's about making progress. Abraham was not a perfect man. He made mistakes, he stumbled, he doubted. But he kept going, he kept trusting, he kept striving to live a life of faith. And that's the challenge for us too, to embrace our imperfections, to learn from our mistakes, and to keep moving forward, guided by our own inner compass, our own sense of purpose. Abraham's story is not just a story of the past, it's a story for the present. It's a story that speaks to the deepest yearnings of the human heart, the desire for meaning, for purpose, for connection with something greater than ourselves. So what will you do? Will you remain in your clinging to the familiar, the comfortable, the safe, or will you answer the call, take the leap of faith, and embark on your own journey of transformation? The choice is yours, and the journey begins now.